Go.
All right, we're going to go. So good morning. My name's Danielle Groth, and I'm a longtime member here at Zion, and I practice what's called EFT, tapping, or it stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. And this is something I want to teach you all today. It is a way of helping deal with stress and anxiety, pain, grief. You name it, basically, it can help you with it. It's somewhat new to the mainstream. It's been around for a long time in what's called energy psychology, but it's a little bit newer into the idea of mainstream for people to learn it. There's two people, Nick Ortner and Jessica Ortner, they're brother and sister, and they're kind of the people who brought it into the mainstream. They live in Sandy Hook, Connecticut, and when the school shooting occurred, they knew that they had something that would help people to heal from that. They worked with the first responders, they worked with the parents, they went into the schools and they helped the kids through this technique of tapping. And in turn, they've turned it into what they call the Tapping Solutions Foundation, and they now go around schools and they train different people to help and work with kids and teachers, and it's just gone out from there to helping people with a ton of different things. And so I wanted to share it with you today. And the main reason, and I was explaining this to Marge earlier, is that we struggle to forgive ourselves all the time. We're hard on ourselves. We criticize ourselves constantly. God has already forgiven us. So why can't we forgive ourselves? Why do we get stuck in these self-sabotaging patterns? And this is something that can help us with this. This is something that can help us be all that God wants us to be. So there's a ton of information here. It's deep in explanation on how this works and how it works with the brain, but that's not why we're here today. If you want to know the deep stuff about this, you can go online. One of the handouts I gave you has links to clinical studies, to scientific studies that show how powerful this is. I don't want to get into it today. I want you to experience it today. You can learn all that, read all that stuff on your own. So we're going to have fun. So I say, why do we struggle to treat ourselves with the same kindness that we show others? Why do we struggle to love ourselves as we love others? Why do we fear the unknown so intensely that we're willing to shy away from the desires that God has put into our hearts? Why do we get enthused when we first start something, only to burn out the moment things get challenging? And why do we stay in these self-sabotaging patterns when we know better? This is going to help with all of this. So we'll cover quickly what is tapping, how does it work, and how do we get started with it, and then we are going to do some tapping exercises. So what is tapping? It's basically what I just explained. It's a powerful holistic technique. It's based on the Chinese medicine and the meridian systems, and one of your handout shows the meridian system ideas. It's, that one there with the person on it. That one there.
Oh,
That, yep. And that's, again, something that you can read and understand. I'll explain a little bit more about what meridian systems are in a moment. But it does. It helps with stress, anxiety, phobias, emotional disorders, chronic pain, weight control, limiting beliefs. And it does it by calming the nervous system. It can actually rewire your brain. It works with the neuroplasticity of your brain. So you might think one thing, but it can actually fix it and create new pathways that your brain can think in a different way. And it can restore your body's energy. So what do I mean by that? That picture there is the meridian system. And much like acupuncture, but thank goodness without needles, for those of you who have fear of needles, although this could help you with fear of needles. You tap on different points of this meridian system. The meridian system actually exists. They have found it in the body. They have done a contrast study, and it does light up. It's extremely small. It's like a fiber optic network. It's probably 8 times smaller than what a blood cell is. It's super tiny, but it's there. As I said, it dates back to the 1960s, and you can read all of this stuff online. But by accessing these channels while we're processing emotions and thoughts, as well as physical conditions such as pain, we get to the root cause of stress sooner and faster. There's the VA hospital now offers tapping to the veterans for post-traumatic stress. They have found that they are able to help veterans faster now than they ever have in the past by being able to do this tapping. It's that powerful. So they actually have, insurance now covers it in the VA hospital. So what happens when we stress, right? We all know when we stress we get stomach aches or different body aches. You get clammy and sweaty. But what happens is there's different parts of your brain that actually stop functioning. So anxiety and stress cause the part of your brain called the amygdala, that's this almond-shaped part of your brain. It's the reptilian part of your brain to go into action. And it pumps out the adrenaline and the cortisol. And these are our stress hormones that turn on the fight, flight, or freeze. So if you picture your fist here and my arm as your brain, this is your brain stem. This is the frontal cortex of your brain. The brain stem sends information up to your brain, and it tells you what you're doing. It helps you, move my arm, or pick up this cup and drink it. And the frontal cortex is the smart part of your brain, right? That's the one that tells you right from wrong. It's the one that helps you to be discerning in what you do. Underneath this limbic part, the amygdala, this is your survival part of your brain. This is the part of the brain that's only goal is to keep you alive. And what happens often is when we get stressed, you flip your lid. Both of these parts of your brain cannot work at the same time. And when this flips, the only part of your brain that's going to work is the amygdala. And it's, what do I need to do? I'm going to pump out these hormones. I'm going to send all of the blood to your limbs so you can run and get out of there. And when that happens, you can't make good choices. So it's what's called a brain drain, right? It's when the body sends the blood to our extremities. This is helpful in an emergency. We need this. If we're about to get hit by a car or something, right, we run. We need that part of our brain to turn on. But your brain isn't able to discern whether or not you're about to be hit by a car or you're standing up here giving this, speech to somebody and teaching them about tapping, and you're nervous. And so you have to find a different way to calm that part of your nervous system down and that part of your brain down. And that's where the tapping comes in, is it allows your body to still have the thought, but it informs your body and reminds it that it's safe. And what happens is this part of the brain will start to close back down again. And you still can be nervous and you can still be sweaty, but you can also make good decisions and choices on what you're doing. So what I want everybody to do for a moment is stand up. I want to show you an experiment of the mind-body connection. If you can't stand up, you're welcome to sit down. You can also do it sitting in your chair. I want everybody to take a moment, do your best, and bend down and touch your toes as close as you can. And make a mental note to yourself of how far down you're going. If you're super limber, then see how close to your knees your face can get. Okay, and stand back up once you've done it. Now you've made that mental note of where you're at. And I want everyone to close their eyes for a moment. And I want you to visualize yourself going 25, maybe 50% further than what you just did with your eyes closed, and just visualize it. Don't do it. Once you all have a good picture of that, you can open your eyes again. And I want you all to bend back down again and touch your toes again and see where you go. How many of you went further? Okay. Yep. So there is a mind-body connection. There is something to be said for how you want your body to do something. Henry Ford said it, whether you think you can or can't, you're right. Your mind is very important in the things that you do and how you think things. So that's part of where tapping comes in. So you can all sit back down. So everybody should have grabbed one of these. It's a man or a female. I did both, so everybody felt that they were properly represented. These are the tapping points that we're going to talk about. And we'll use our fingertips to tap on these points about 5 to 7 times. It doesn't matter what side you do. You can do both sides if you want at the same time. That's not important. You can change your hands partway through if you need to, if an arm gets tired. That's not a problem either. So these are all the points. So I'll run through them with you. This is your karate chop point. This is the point where you start at, and we call it the karate chop point because, yeah, that's right where you would do it at. And, say 2 fingers, 4 fingers, however you feel comfortable with. Then you're going to go to the inside of your eye, right where your eyebrow ends and your nose begins, and you'll tap on that spot there. Then you'll move to the outer part of your eye, just kind of where the bone is, right before the temple. Under your eye, where you feel the bone there underneath your eye. Under your nose. And the little crease of your chin. And then you have your collarbone here, just below your collarbone. It's called your sore spot or your soft spot. And this is where, I don't know if any of you ever are kind of stressed and don't feel good, you find yourself naturally rubbing this spot. It's a normal, natural calming spot. And that's where you're going to end up tapping at. And then under your arm, so where a woman's bra strap would be, you're just about 3-4 inches underneath your arm. And then the top of your head, closer to the back where that soft spot is at. So those are all the spots that you tap on. I know it seems really silly. It's like, you're a gorilla thumping, but those are all beginning or end points of the meridian system, and that's what you're tapping on.
In sequence.
In that sequence, yep. That sequence matters.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is tapping focuses on the negative emotions, and this is where people really get hung up on tapping. Is I'm supposed to be a positive person, why do I think about the negative? But the negative is your truth in that moment of whatever it is that you're feeling. This is where you get to be 5 years old, and you get to whine and moan and complain and say all of these things that you normally wouldn't want to say to somebody. Because truly that's the things that you're feeling, and subconsciously that's what you're feeling. And if you deny it and ignore it, then you're not helping yourself to move forward. So, one of the reasons I started doing tapping was for my son. He's autistic and he has a lot of meltdowns. And he gets really mad and frustrated with me. And so I start with him and I help put the words for him because he struggles on it. But, I'll just I hate my mom. My mom is so mean right now. He always calls me a poopy head. She's such a poopy head. And usually by the time he gets to poopy head, he starts laughing. And instantly, it's just amazing how quickly he calms down when he does that. Because normally when kids have this meltdown, you can't even talk to them. Because this limbic part of their brain is the only thing that's functioning. And it's all about themselves at that moment when they're on the floor kicking and screaming. And I don't even need him to tap. I can tap on myself for him because this is how energy works. And I can say those words for him. As long as he's listening and hears it, he can calm down. It's really, really cool. So you're going to want to focus on all of those things. Don't try to rationalize it. Don't be, well, I know that I'm really mad at this person, but they probably didn't mean what they said. They have a really kind heart. Maybe they're having a bad day. That's not what you want to do. If you're mad at somebody, be mad at somebody, and it's okay. Because you're not saying it to them, so just, do it to yourself and process that emotion. So what you start doing, you focus on what is that most pressing issue, and I'm going to give you some ideas. We're going to work on one. So whatever it is that's bothering you at the moment. So if you had a really bad day at work, and you're mad at a colleague, that's something that you would say that's your pressing issue. I really don't like how that person threw me under the bus today. I really don't like how this was interrupted by a trumpet thing. So frustrated right now by this trumpet.
I don't know, sounds good to me.
All right, so we can keep going. So what you do, once you create that most pressing issue and you come up with it, you're going to craft what's called a setup statement, and that's where the karate chop point comes in. This is the only point where you do it 3 times in a row. And what you want to do is say, even though I have this problem, and you're acknowledging this problem, I completely and deeply accept myself, is something you could say, or I accept how I feel, or it's over and I'm safe now, or I choose to remain calm now. So what you're telling yourself is, I'm feeling all of this right now, but it's going to be okay, and I'm okay. And you're sending this message to your brain to start calming down with it. So you can end it in a couple different ways. We'll use some different examples. Then you're going to choose a reminder phrase. It can be the same exact phrase everywhere through, or it can be, do you ever have an argument with somebody and then you come home and you're like, oh, I should have said this, and oh, I should have said that? Say it. This is the time to do it. Say all those brilliant comebacks that you had that you didn't get an opportunity to say, and each one can be different as you say it. And what will happen is, as you tap through it, you'll find at some point you'll take this deep breath and you just feel everything just kind of relax and let go. And oftentimes, when it's something bigger, something will come up. And what I mean by that is you'll start thinking about something. So it'll be, maybe it's just, you're just stressed, but you don't know why. So you're just tapping on all this stress, all this anxiety. I have these feelings, this butterflies in my stomach. I'm not even hungry right now. And you're going through all of this, and then you realize you start thinking about work. And you're like, oh, well, maybe there's something going on at work. And so you pause and you ask yourself, well, what happened at work? And you're like, oh, yeah, that meeting just didn't go well. And I was prepared for it, but people just didn't receive it as well as I had hoped, or I got so much more work now because of this meeting. You're frustrated about it. And maybe you just didn't slow down and still yourself enough to realize that that was it. So now you go through and you start tapping on that. This meeting, I really wish it would have gone better than it did. I can't believe that guy asked me that question. He totally messed up everything. It's not even his responsibility, and now somehow it's putting it on my plate. And now I have to spend all of my weekend doing this, particular something. So whatever it is that comes up is what it is that you want to focus on. And you continue to do rounds and rounds of this until there's really kind of nothing left. And oftentimes it's sadness that comes up, or you're just really, maybe tired, or you just feel like if you talk about it, it doesn't matter anymore. Because we all have stories, right, that if you tell somebody and you can even say, oh, I can still remember it like yesterday. Or an accident or something that maybe you saw and you tell somebody and you can still feel it, or you hear a certain noise, or you smell a certain smell, right? And it reminds you of an event, of something in the past, something maybe that was unpleasant, and you start to feel something inside of you. Those are emotions that you haven't dealt with, and that's the kind of stuff that tapping works on, and that's where you want to put your focus on. So what I was thinking of is, we'll practice something. I'm curious, how many people here have chronic pain? Have something in their body somewhere that hurts often that they have to deal with? And really, nobody? I'm impressed if that's you guys are amazing. Okay, we won't do chronic pain then. How many of you have a critical voice and find yourself being hard on yourself often? Yeah. So is this a good one to probably start with? So we'll practice on this, and you'll get an idea of how this works and where it can go. So often what you do is you close your eyes and you just kind of scan through your body and you think about an event, maybe it's something recent, or where you're really hard on yourself, and see where and how you feel it. This works best, it needs to be something that you feel in your body that gets you somehow worked up. And if it's, if it's chronic pain, if you have, shoulder pain or knee pain or back pain, even if it's something that your doctor has said, well, you have a herniated disc, right? It's going to hurt. Guarantee there's emotion that's still attached to it. And it's something that can help you, because there are people with herniated discs that don't have pain. So you can have these issues and not have pain. So oftentimes it's because there's an emotion that's attached to it. So we're going to skip through pain relief here. There we go. So I put this up here so you can follow along, and you're going to need to repeat it. So I'll say it, and then you'll repeat after me, and we'll get an experience for this, and then you can ask some questions about how it works. So are there any questions yet first to start with before I know there's a lot kind of stuff goes fast, and yeah.
I noticed that you're tapping with one hand, so should we be tapping like this and this, or left hand, right hand, or
If
both?
you tap with both hands, you would tap at the same time. You don't do back and forth, you would tap at the same time. You don't have to, you can just tap with one. For me personally, it's more comfortable to tap with one hand. And then when this one gets tired, if I have a long round of it, then I switch to the other hand.
Okay.
But some people, you know, if they're really working on it, they want to do both. So it's total personal preference. Yep.
About how long is this example we're going to do?
It's about 5 minutes that it takes to go through this example. Any other questions?
Is
Yeah.
that typical, 5 minutes typical per example, or?
For the example, yeah, but when you're working on yourself, no. I mean, like when I have clients come and see me, we can go at it for an hour and still not be done. Depends on what the issue is. Yep. Karen?
What are we supposed to be thinking about while we're doing this?
So I want you to think about a moment or something where you're self-critical about yourself, something that you really, struggle with, where, like I said, maybe God has, God has forgiven you, but it's something you can't seem to get over yourself, or maybe, I play with this one woman for tennis, and she's, always like, oh, you're so bad at this. I can't believe, why would you make a shot like this? She's always yelling at herself on the tennis court. It's very unenjoyable to play with a partner like that. So if there's something, where, I'm just, I just can't seem to lose the weight that I'm losing, or I can't, seem to get my act together on something. So whatever that might be for yourself is what I want you to focus on. If you're not sure what that is, it doesn't matter. We'll just go in through and tap on this, but listen to yourself and think about what comes up. And it can be the oddest thing that comes up. I had somebody we were tapping on one thing, and we stopped and paused and then checked in, and it's like, well, what are you thinking right now? Well, I'm hugging a cactus right now.
Oh my.
Like, okay. And what it comes down to is there's something that she loves so much, but it was so prickly and painful to love it. It was like hugging a cactus. And so we talked about that. What does that mean? What does that look like? Who is that person, or what is that thing that you love so much that is so hard for you to love that it hurts to love? And that led down a whole another road to a lot of other, issues of tapping. So when I say weird stuff comes up, it comes up, but it's how your brain processes things and how your subconscious processes these things. So if everybody's ready, we'll hold up our karate chop point, and we'll start tapping, and repeat after me. Even though my critical voice is saying these harsh things to me,
My critical voice is saying these harsh things to me.
I accept myself and I choose to relax now.
I accept myself and I choose to relax now.
I'm going to do that 2 more times. Even though my critical voice is saying these harsh things,
Even though my critical voice is saying these harsh things,
I accept myself and I choose to relax now.
I accept myself and I choose to relax now.
1 more time. Even though my critical voice is saying these harsh things to me,
I accept myself and I choose to relax now.
let me go to the eyebrow here, by the nose. I'm so hard on myself.
I'm so hard on myself.
Side of the eye, my critical voice.
My critical voice
Under the eye, it's always there.
is always there,
Under your nose, ready to bring me down.
ready to bring me down.
Under the mouth, these things I say to myself.
These things I say to myself.
Your collarbone, I'd never say them to a scared child.
I'd never say them to a scared child.
Under your arm, I'd never say them to a loved one.
I'd never say them to a loved one.
Top of your head, I'm so hard on myself.
I'm so hard on myself.
Go back to the eyebrow. I've been self-critical for so long.
I've been self-critical for so long.
Side of the eye. And part of me doesn't think I can change.
Part of me doesn't think I can change.
Under the eye. Part of me listens to this voice.
Part of me listens to this voice
Under the nose. Because I think it'll help.
because I think it'll help.
Under the mouth. I've been trying to hate myself happy.
I've been trying to hate myself happy.
Collarbone. I've been trying to criticize myself to change.
I've been trying to criticize myself to change.
Under the arm. I acknowledge the pain that this causes me.
I acknowledge the pain this causes me.
Top of the head. And how stuck I feel.
And how stuck I feel.
Everybody just pause for a quick moment and check in with yourself and see, does any of this resonate with you? Or do you feel any of this making sense? And if you do, focus on that feeling. If you feel it somewhere in your body, if there's maybe a nervousness to yourself, or maybe a heaviness in your chest, or a little bit of sadness that comes with it of, yeah, I am really hard on myself, that's the part of your body you want to tune into right now. And we'll keep moving forward. And often what you do is you'll give yourself a number of a 0 to 10, 0 being you don't feel it at all, to 10 it's a really intense feeling. And then we check in on that number along the way to see, are we making progress? Is that number shifting or coming down? Or has that pain moved? Or is it maybe not a heaviness in my chest anymore, but maybe, you know, it's a sadness that I feel, or maybe, you know, it's a ickiness in my stomach or something. So check in with yourself. And we'll go to the next round. Go to the eyebrow again. I acknowledge my critical voice.
I acknowledge my critical voice.
Side of the eye. And all of the anxiety that comes with it.
And all of the anxiety that comes with it.
Under the eye. All the self-criticism.
All self-criticism.
Under the nose. It's hard to live with.
It's hard to live with.
Under the mouth. It makes me anxious.
It makes me anxious.
Collarbone. It makes me panic.
It makes me panic.
Under the arm. I'm tired of fighting this critical voice.
I'm tired of fighting this critical voice.
The top of the head. I'm open to a new way.
I'm open to a new way.
Back to the eyebrow. I begin to notice when I hear my critical voice.
I begin to notice when I hear critical voice.
Side of the eye. I notice how I feel.
I notice how I feel.
Under the eye. Am I scared or overwhelmed?
Am I scared or overwhelmed?
Under the nose. I acknowledge the emotions behind this voice.
I acknowledge the emotions behind this voice.
Under the mouth. I honor my feelings.
I honor my feelings.
Collarbone. I honor how hard this has been.
I honor how hard this has been.
Under the arm. I don't need to fight my critical voice.
I don't need to fight my critical voice.
Top of the head. I simply honor how I feel.
I simply honor how I feel.
And then we stop and pause for a moment again and kind of check in with yourself and see how you're feeling and what comes up. And often when you're doing this with yourself or with a practitioner, you wait until your level comes down to usually like around a 3 or less. And then you actually do go through and you put in a positive couple of statements. And so that's what we'll do now to teach. I'll show you that we'll do 2 rounds of more positive ways to help us to now get past and what do we do now that we've moved through this. So we go back to the eyebrow. I allow my body to relax.
I allow my body to relax.
Side of the eye. This critical voice is simply an invitation.
This critical voice is simply an invitation.
Under the eye. To practice kindness and self-compassion.
To practice kindness and self-compassion.
Under the nose. I need to release the need to fight it.
I need to release the need to fight it.
Under the mouth. I remember that I am safe.
I remember that I am safe.
Collarbone. I don't need to believe.
I don't need to believe.
Under the arm. Everything I think.
Everything I think.
Top of the head. I give my body permission to relax.
I give my body permission to relax.
And one more. Back to the eyebrow. As I feel centered in my body.
As I feel centered in my body.
Inside of the eye. I choose to be a good friend to myself.
I choose to be a good friend to myself.
Under the eye. I have my own back.
I have my own back.
Under the nose. I nurture my spirit with positive thoughts.
I nurture my spirit with positive thoughts.
Under the mouth. I am in control of what I focus on.
I am in control of what I focus on.
Collarbone. I focus on my gifts.
I I focus on my gifts.
Under the arm, I have so much to share with this world.
I have so much to share with this world.
On the top of the head, I clear my path with encouraging thoughts.
I clear my path with encouraging thoughts.
And then you stop and just take a nice deep breath. So does anybody want to share what they felt about this, or if it resonated with them, or? Go ahead.
I know you're putting a lot of emphasis on the touching part. Can you get the same or similar results by just repeating what you're saying?
You know, actually it's the opposite. You cannot say anything and you tap. It's more of the points and actually focusing on that meridian system than it is the words. What's great about this too is so people who have experienced severe trauma and just can't even verbalize it, you don't have to say anything. They can think it. I can just sit across from them while they go through it and I tap with them, but they're thinking it all. I have no idea what's going on, so if they're not ready to share it out loud, but they want to process it, they can.
Do you think it might be different for different people?
Well,
Tapping or the speaking?
the words are important for you. So I would get people started. This is what's hard about teaching it in a group setting is it needs to be words that resonate with you. So, you know, this might not be something that fits an issue that you're having, or, you know, you might never say to yourself, you know, I hate myself happy. You're like, that's a weird sentence, that doesn't fit me. So it needs to be what fits you. It's what you're personally feeling. So when you do this with yourself, you'll find it works a little bit different when you're putting your own words into it. But the points, the actual tapping, if you mess up and you forget a point or something, that's okay. But the tapping part and hitting those points, that's what's really sending that message to your nervous system and creating that calm.
And this meridian system is specifically associated with these very words.
No, it's not the words, it's the points, it's the tapping. The words are what help you get into it and to feel it and to experience it and to let this stuff out, right? It's just everybody, when you have a problem, right, it helps if you express it, if you get it out. If you just shove everything in all the time, this is what I teach the kids. It's I call it, they wear their stress backpack, right? They go to school every day, they have an issue with people, they don't want to talk about it, and they put everything in their backpack. Until the point that, and this happens to us too, we have our own stress backpacks. When your spouse or something says something to you, and you just explode on something that really you probably wouldn't have normally, you just couldn't possibly fit anything else in, it's because you're not letting this kind of stuff out. So when you tap on these things and you say these words, so this is something you can even just do at night, where you release something that you had during the day that you just didn't feel good about. It doesn't have to be a long, complicated thing. It's just letting out that stress, putting words to what you're feeling, and letting it go. And it doesn't change what happened, it just neutralizes that emotion so that it's not charged, so that when somebody says something to you, you explode for no reason. Well, they think no reason at all.
So the tapping is not associated with these words, but the tapping is associated with the thought that's in your head at this moment.
Yep. So like if we had done the one on the pain relief, it's whatever your pain was is what we would have worked on. And I could have said one in particular, but in your mind you could have been focusing on your knee while somebody else was focusing on their back. It's whatever relates to you personally, because these are your emotions, your issues. Any other thoughts or questions? Or
You haven't included those words on the handout, so I assume you mean that we do this and make up our own words as we go along.
Yep, that's exactly how it is. So, like for an example, I worked with somebody who had a fear of public speaking. And she had a large presentation to give, and the presentation was something she had to read from. She had to introduce somebody, and she has no problem speaking in front of people if it's her own words and she's doing this and presenting her own stuff. But the fact that she had to read something and introduce somebody, she was just a hot mess about it, and she was all sweaty and clammy, and she was stumbling over her own words, and she was like, you got to help me get past this. This is an important meeting. This is a big group of people. So we just started tapping on, you know, this nervousness that I feel when I speak in public, all this anxiety. I feel it in my stomach, and we go through all of this. And then I ask her what comes up. And she's like, you know, I haven't thought about this in ages, but I'm remembering back in 7th grade when I was running for student council. And we talk about it. And so you can also do what's called telling the story, or you play this movie in your head and you pick a specific event that you know is bothersome to you. And you tell this event. And so she starts telling me about how I was running for student council and I needed to go up and give my presentation, and my cousin was holding the note cards up off to the side of the stage and I was reading from them. And so she tells me this while she's tapping through the points. And partway through, her cousin dropped the cards. She couldn't get them up in time, they got all mixed up, and she froze and she panicked, and she felt very uncomfortable, and she hurried up and said what she could remember and like ran off of the stage. Right? You're 7th grade, you know, you're in front of your friends. She lost the election, not even her friends voted for her. And it was humiliating and it was crushing for her. Then move forward to college. Now she's in college and she has to give a presentation, and they're sitting in this circle. And she didn't really prepare for it because she thought she knew what she knew, and felt if she prepared that was going to mess her up, so she didn't. Well, she flubbed her way through. She got some Snickers from some people in the group, and it just solidified to her, speaking in public isn't safe. And that's what happens in her brain. Speaking in public isn't safe. And so now it comes time to speak in public with prepared notes, because this is what happened in 7th grade. And she automatically, right, that part of her brain starts to remember it, and that cortisol starts coming, and the adrenaline starts pumping, and her heart goes a little bit faster. And naturally, when that happens, there's a really good chance you're going to flub something up. And sure enough, this is the stuff that kept happening to her. And every time she did, it solidified that neural pathway that kept reminding her speaking isn't safe, speaking in public isn't safe. So we worked on that, and we tapped through that whole instance, and it opens up a lot of doors of hurt feelings, of her friends didn't even vote for her. That was really sad, and that was really hard for her. And so we tapped on that, and she cried on that, because there was a lot of emotion behind her friends. And your friends are everything, right, in 7th grade. I mean, that means a lot to you. And so anyways, long story short, we did all this, and she went and she gave a fabulous presentation, and she said it was fine. She tapped right before she went on stage. People who do this can stand up here, and you'll see a lot of sports people will do this. You'll see them on the sides doing this, and you'll even see them tapping on this. They do this to get through the Olympics, or tennis players and such. You'll see in between matches that they're tapping, because it just helps to calm all of this stuff down.
Are there any, I'm sitting here trying to think, are there any universal issues that every single person in this room would feel? You know, we're picking we're choosing what's troubling us mostly at the moment.
Right.
But are there some universal feelings?
Well, public speaking is a big one. I mean, a huge part of the population has fears of public speaking.
So that's why we might shun from leading Bible study or some such thing?
Yeah. I mean, it took me a long, normally I would have never have done something like this. Larry can attest to that this is huge for me to be up here doing this. But I tapped before I walked in here to be able to, to do this and to get through it. And so this for me has been life-changing. And it helps my son tremendously. I know that I've helped a lot of people get to issues that they didn't realize. Sometimes you just don't realize what's bothering you. You feel stuck, you feel sad, or you have, certain things that just kind of set you off and you're not quite sure what it is. Or, there's fears and phobias. Like, there's people who, like, if they hear an ambulance siren, they get really scared, or it makes them anxious or something. Oftentimes it relates to an event that happened somewhere in their life. And it's how do you help them get past that so that when they hear a siren, they can neutralize what that feeling is, so that they don't get all anxious and tensed up and do one of these things. Because stress is harmful on the body. It creates a lot of different issues. You get gut issues, you get headaches, migraines, all of these different things. So if you can figure out different ways to help manage the stress, to keep those cortisol levels down, to keep that adrenaline down, you can be a healthier person.
So you're suggesting, I don't want to take all the time here, but you're suggesting that I have a god-awful week coming up. This is a god-awful week. And I know that the very first thing that's going to be bothering me is the traffic getting from there to here.
Mm-hmm.
You're suggesting
Traffic that I'm going to have to sit in, and it's going to make me stressed and anxious. I accept how I feel, and I'm okay. There's going to be all of this traffic. I might be late to this meeting, and oh my goodness, what's going to happen if I'm late? I'm going to mess everything up, and I'm going to have a nervous stomach, and all this anxiety that's around it. I don't like this feeling. And this has happened to me before. I've gone to these things, I've gotten stuck in traffic, and I'm late, and this is awful, and my meeting went awful, and I didn't get to do the things that I wanted to do and say because we ran out of time, and I hated that feeling. And you go through all that, you say how you feel about all of it, and then you can end it with, but I know that if I leave early enough, that I'll be okay. And even if I'm late, good chance other people are going to be late too because of the traffic. Or I'll catch up. I'll choose to remain calm. I choose to be okay with this. I can't control the traffic. And you just go through and say all of those things. And it will help you to calm down and get through it.
And my last one, which is a confession, is to say, as I'm coming to a session like this, I'm going to say, Marge, you're going to talk too much. Okay? Marge, 90% of the people don't give a, rat's eye what you have in your head. We're here to learn something about us. You're going to talk too much. Okay?
Do you feel it? Like, does it make you anxious to have to feel that you have to squash your voice?
Well, it makes me feel sorry for everyone else. Who may not have the same
But that's
stuff.
everybody else's problems of,
Well,
I
that's-
wish I
that's
could
my
speak up
issue.
like Marge. I wish that I had the
Is
courage.
that my problem, or is that everyone else's? Marge, shut up. We've had enough of you.
That's everybody else's issue. But if you feel bad about it, that's your issue.
I feel bad about it because I put myself in their position.
But that's not for you to do.
Overthinking.
Yep, you're filling in
Well,
your thought bubble.
God help you all.
Don't worry about it, Mark.
Danielle, the points you went through, the collarbone, and then you went to the underarm, you didn't hit the sore spot. Is the collarbone and the sore spot the same thing?
Yeah, so you can either hit on your collarbone or you just go just below it in your sore spot. And this is the one where I'm saying if you're, feeling kind of anxious or stressed and you're in a, you can just rub this spot and it will naturally just to help to calm you down. I tell the kids a lot to do this when they're taking a test, and I'm sure you've all experienced this at some point, right, where you think you know things and you do, and they've studied hard, and then they mess up. There's like a question that comes up and they don't know it. And then you start to panic because you're like, oh, I know this, I studied this, and then like, okay, I'm going to skip it and go to the next one. I don't know that one either. Oh no, right? And this panic starts to come on. They can just sit there at the desk and they can just start doing this, and it helps to slow stuff down, because as they're panicking about what they don't know, this is what's happening. This part of the brain is starting to come up, and this part knows. This part's studied. It's ready, but it's going like this, and now this is the only thing left. It's, oh no. There's only 15 minutes left and I have 30 questions. How am I going to do it? Panic, panic, panic. And they end up messing up on a test that they were well prepared for. All because they stressed, not because they didn't know the answers. So, and this can happen to any of you under a lot of different circumstances where you are ready and you're prepared and you know things, but you stress out and this part of your brain stops functioning and it's just fight, flight, or freeze. What am I going to do right now? And so this will help to calm it down. I mean, you naturally do these things, right? When you have a headache, when you're stressed, don't you naturally just tap on the side of your eyes, right? That's another point that you can do it. If you squeeze I don't know, I mean, I do this, like I squeeze my hands a lot when I'm really nervous. You find people wringing their hands, right, when they're nervous. This is a similar thing. This here is called your gamut point. And there's a whole nother technique that there wasn't time for it, of how you can just use your hands and how this gamut point is something. So again, it's not something people need to see. You know, I could have been up here just doing this while I was talking to you, but I'm Italian, I talk with my hands. So. But I could have been doing this to help myself, you know, with stress, and people don't really notice. There's stealth tapping, it's called, where you tap on different points of your fingers. It's also part of the meridian system as well, where you can just go through and you tap like this, and it can help you to be calm. So again, if you're around people who you don't want them to know that you're anxious and that you're nervous about something, because yeah, if you're, I mean, it does look a little odd if you're just like, what? No, don't mind me. You're just stressing me out, but it's okay. Go ahead, keep yelling at me. I'll be fine with it. That seemed a little odd, but if someone is, you know, getting mad at you, you can sit here and, you know, calmly do this, or just rub on your hands, or, you know, they're not going to think much if you're just, you know, kind of, you know, maybe they think you got an itch or something. So there's secret ways to do it all. So if anyone has any other questions or wants to know more, you can ask me about this later, or you can email me.
Your program's coming up in October, right?
Yeah, so on October 27th, it's a Saturday, we are doing a mind, body, and spirit retreat here at Zion from 9 to 4. It's for everybody, it's not just a women's only thing. We are going to have, there's going to be some chanting that we're going to learn, prayer chanting. I'm going to teach, again, EFT and help people deal with some different things. We're going to learn about essential oils, and we're going to create different products for our home. We're calling it the miracle of subtraction. It's the idea of when things don't add up in your life, start subtracting. So it'll be, how do we remove stress? How do we remove toxins? So that's what we'll be making with we'll do like household cleaners and such with the essential oils. We're going to bring in singing bowls, crystal singing bowls and Tibetan bowls. If those of you who don't know what those are, they make these beautiful sounds, and you do a sound bath meditation, and it works with the vibration of your body. We're going to have prayer labyrinth and different prayer stations and teach you different ways to pray, whatever, again, kind of works for yourself. We're going to have yoga, we're going to do vision boarding, and there's a bunch of fun things, and a nice healthy lunch will be provided. So
When is this again?
this is October 27th, it's a Saturday. It is before the football game, which is at night. So in the tower, it's printed wrong. It's printed as the 29th. Don't listen to the tower.
Saturday.
But it is Saturday the 27th. And I am working on creating a website because we need people to register ahead of time, because we are providing food, and there'll be take-home items like the vision boarding and the essential oil things, and I need to know how much stuff to order. So I want to make sure I have enough for everybody. We have actually hired people to come in and teach some of these things, so they are professionals in the areas that they're doing, and then also myself, Pastor Vicki, and Natalie Downs will also be helping and working out. So it's fun. We've been working on it for a while. I'm excited to share it with everyone.
Is this limited to a number of people?
Nope, whatever can fit in the church building, I suppose. And we're opening it up to the public. We'll be, we're promoting it in different wellness places and different yoga studios. Poster going up at Whole Foods and things like that too, trying to get some other people. Our idea and our hope is there's a lot of people out there who are lost spiritually and are afraid to step foot into church, to step foot into a service. But if we can get them to take one step closer into our building to help maybe with the whole mind, body, and spirit idea, maybe we can help them to turn a corner, and maybe in all of this they can find where they need to be, or at least be introduced to God, and see if they can find their way back or find their way for the first time. But that's what our hope is. We're trying to reach people in different ways, evangelizing in a different way, looking outside of the box, trying something different. So thank you.